Wow. Why was it so low? Are we good? Can you hear me? Good. All right, everybody ready? I'm going to call to order the Wednesday, November 6th workshop. We're not having a city council meeting, a regular meeting tonight. That was canceled. But we have a time for visitor communication. So if there's anybody that wants to sign up for that, you can do it now and give it to her. And later on, after our two um, uh, items, we can have that as well. And I guess I'm talking to you, Kathy. So first up on the agenda, first of all, just for the record, 4 of us are here. Gary is not here. First item up is the public safety survey report. And coming to the table is Lieutenant Davis and Assistant City Manager Prosser.
Good evening, Council.
Hello. I thought it's not that loud.
How's that? It's not on? I think it's on.
It's
Yeah,
on.
It's on. Can you hear me? I'll pull a little closer.
Lit.
Yeah,
It is lit.
Is it?
Yeah.
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 Good luck.
So this is the report that came out of the public safety survey that we did in August that our intern Holly Davis put together for us. It is the third survey that we've done, starting in 2019, as we look towards getting a new contract with the Deschutes County Sheriff's Office. We put out our first survey. We did another survey in 2021, and then this is the 2024 survey. So we do try to do it every 2 to 3 years just to get a kind of a taste of what the community is looking and thinking. So 3 things that we really looked at this year was what were the traffic concerns, safety concerns. That was a big one on our 21 survey, so we put that as a kind of a big block of questions. We looked at what the impression of crime was in Sisters and how satisfied are you with the level of law enforcement. So those were the 3 kind of question blocks that we had. And you can either ask questions in between or we can do questions at the end, either way. So looking at traffic safety, the 21 survey identified traffic as the biggest threat to public safety. Due to this high level of concern, traffic safety was given more emphasis in 2024, and which featured 6 questions focused on traffic, pedestrian, and bike safety. 92% of our respondents had regularly encountered traffic issues in this survey. Key concerns included speeding and pedestrian safety. 34% would like increased traffic enforcement, and 22% called for more traffic calming measures throughout the city. And we have looked at the suggested improvements on the first bar graph. Again, traffic enforcement was the first suggestion. And then the traffic issues, speeding at 44% was the biggest concern for the folks that responded to the survey. And just to let you know, we did have 368 respondents to the survey. We sent it out to just a little bit over 1,600 people, and then also out on social media. So that was kind of our group. Yeah.
You probably don't have the numbers now, but I would be interested. You probably don't have the numbers now, but I would be interested to know if what the numbers were and number of respondents for 2019 and
2019, the first year I can look up, I know 2021, I believe there were just over 600 respondents.
Huh.
I'll verify those for both 2019 and 2021 for you. So in the prior surveys, just for the backstory, those were sent out to our mailing list for utilities. This survey was set out solely electronically, and it did go out to those utility customers as well. So it went out to the same group, but it went out electronically. And part of that was we were doing all the tallying and the data by hand in the 2 previous surveys. And so this allowed us to actually probably get better, more accurate data back, but it was an interesting, different take on how many people returned the survey. It wasn't quite as many as the previous, but I will get those points to you.
okay. So basically about a little greater than 10% of the public responded.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions at this point? All right. So the survey also returned as far as crime went. The survey gauged perceptions of crime levels in Sisters, revealing that 76% of respondents viewed crime as low or very low, and the main safety concerns were theft and drug-related offenses. Of note also, both during the daytime and nighttime, our citizens felt very safe on the streets of Sisters, and that's noted in the report.
That hasn't changed at all since
And that hasn't really
19
changed. There are some comparisons in the report, if you saw, from 2021 to 2024. We changed quite a few of the questions in 2024 this year. 2019 and 2021 were very similar surveys, so we had a lot of comparison. This was not as comparative, and we needed to adjust the survey. Our first 2 years, we were learning how to do this and what kind of questions people were concerned about. So I'm hopeful in the next few surveys, we can stay more consistently with some of the questions we've asked, so we have more comparative data. I did try to do some comparative data when it came as close as I could to matching them without manipulating any of the pieces. So then the third piece that we really asked questions on was the law enforcement services, how satisfied folks were with DCSO's contracted law enforcement, and how willing would you be to pay more per month for increased law enforcement services and sisters. And on contracted law enforcement services, many expressed satisfaction with the Deschutes County Sheriffs, and the survey finds surrounding law enforcement services will be used. The survey found findings surrounding law enforcement services will be used to assist staff in negotiating new contracts. So we really look at these, and these were very, very consistent throughout the two surveys. We didn't have the contract in the 2019 survey, so we just have the 2 years comparison. But if you look at those graphs, very, very similar responses. And we do have a contract that we will look at moving into the new year with DCSO.
That's not just similar, that's basically the same. I mean, that is
Yeah.
incredibly close considering 3 years apart.
So when you say they're similar, can you be more specific about the similarity
From these two questions,
from the question?
The
the
percentage.
charts.
Yeah,
So
I'm,
the respondents, the percentage of respondents who were, so for example, and how satisfied, 2021 very satisfied was 40%, and then, sorry, my own vision is bad, 38%. And when you kind of do between the very satisfied and satisfied, those percentages together are pretty equitable, that people are very satisfied with the service.
and on the question about whether the solutions, whether we increase
Mhm.
patrols or where there are similarities there too?
That one was a harder one
Okay.
because we didn't ask, and so the suggested improvements to traffic, is that what you were speaking of?
Yeah,
The traffic enforcement
question number 17.
on that one.
Yeah.
And that was interesting because I don't think we had a similar question
Ah,
in 2021.
okay. Thank you.
So how can the survey be used? How have we used it in the past? So, the council can consider implementing recommendations for improved traffic management. As I noted in the staff report, the four-way stop at Hood and Pine was noted numerous times in the comments, and that should be installed tomorrow. I think, Jackson, some very similar. So it is, which was great to see that that's happening right away. We can look into expanded police patrols if the council would like to do that. We can explore community support for additional funding for law enforcement. There's not a lot against, not a lot for, kind of a real neutral ground on that survey question for the last two surveys. Some of this information can help inform your policy decisions. What do you want to focus on? Whether it's, traffic safety, it's, looking at crime, or looking at expanding our services, our police services. And how do we, can you look at it to enhance our public safety and sisters in the long term? I did in the report put in the comments from the two of the questions, so the full comments from the public. This report is available right now on our website for the public to view in its entirety and under the administrative page. And happy to take questions from the report or in general.
So I found it interesting on that particular question number 17, rank the improvements that could be made to reduce crime in sisters. That for the first choice, in the more detailed reporting,
Mhm.
get to that one. Sorry, fumbling with pages. That's 18. Sorry. That for first choice, 57% had another choice other than increasing police patrols. So if you look at the first choices for neighborhood watch, improved streets, community outreach program, community support services, those total up to 57%. So to me, what the people want is more of these other things than increasing police patrols. That's what it reads to me. Am I wrong in that assessment? Is that a wrong way of looking at that?
So basically on question on the survey results, the increased police patrols got 40% of the first ranked. Neighborhood Watch got 18%, improved street lighting got 10%, community outreach got 8%, and community support programs, addiction services, et cetera, got 21% of,
Being ranked first choice,
correct.
yes.
So
And so if you lump all those different first choices together that are not to increase patrolling, there's more of them than there are for increased patrolling. That's the way I read that.
But they weren't actually voting against increased patrolling. They just had other ideas that they thought could be as important.
No, it was their first choice.
It was
The other ideas were their first choice. There were other choices and their first choices are
right.
all ranked.
Yes, I
yeah,
understand. But
yeah.
40%, 40 to 50% said that
No.
was their first choice.
40% said that.
46, right.
Yeah, 57% didn't say that.
But I think council can look at the data and kind of this expanded data on that question, a couple of the questions, and choose. And that's where it comes into what are you going to do with, in future enhancing the safety, whether it's, lighting shows up here. So is improved street lighting one of those? Is that something that, council can look at the data and say, yeah, actually that we think that's important. We see that people rank that as their number one and could move forward with changes, updates
Well, in
on any of
future,
those pieces.
future changes to like, dark skies, we're gonna be changing our lighting anyway. So we hopefully can find something that is not as bright, but is brighter at the same time.
Yeah, that just.
Down, I guess.
More useful.
More
Yeah,
useful, right, yeah.
And I think on, when you look at the raw data on this, council does have a choice to, to analyze that and choose where they'd like to go, if anywhere,
Mhm.
with updates to public safety within the city.
Yeah.
I personally think that if only 40% want one thing and then there's a lot of other things, there's a great possibility that not much needs to be done, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
You know, that doesn't mean we can't improve areas such as lighting or speed mitigation some in other areas, but it doesn't mean we have to, I don't think it means that this survey is saying anything that we have to do something now or we're in deep stuff, right?
No,
I don't,
it gives good information.
oh, I think it's great information. I think that
A lot of good information.
we should
But-
probably do it every other year if it's,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think we kind of took a little skip with transitions with the city manager
yeah.
over last year.
I believe it's Jordan's fault.
that's where that
actually.
skip happened.
I can agree to that.
I found it very comforting
Yeah,
that we are in that position, that that's the kind of responses we get. When I see reports from other communities about, different meetings and whatnot that they have, there's usually there's a real something going on and boy, people aren't liking something and it's a big hot topic. Well, safety in Sisters is not a big hot topic.
That's right.
We had to bring it up. We had to coax it out of people in a survey to find out
Mhm.
because I don't get regular feedback from anybody about safety issues.
Mhm.
I
That
hear
traffic.
complaints about traffic.
Yeah.
That's inevitable. There's, but not about safety. I don't.
I hear more about pedestrian safety, and I'll point to somebody here who's in the room.
Yeah.
More than transportation safety, you know what I mean? Although I will say that I do fall into the camp of, I wish people would slow down. I wish people would stop rolling stop signs. It happens a lot. And it'd be great if everybody was just a little more conscious about their driving. One of the questions I had, and Jennifer, I saw you come sit up. I think you want to say something in a second, but I would like to know a little bit more about the policies of how much enforcement, how much education. I know in the past, if I remember correctly, it was kind of initiated by the sheriff himself, and it was kind of dictated through the department of how much, you know, because he's, your boss, we hire you obviously, and we would hope that we can nudge you in certain directions, but for the most part, you work for the sheriff and the sheriff kind of has always dictated that. Is the election going to possibly change how some of these policies filter down to your service, even working for the City of Sisters? Is there a possible change coming or an emphasis? Slight moves. I'm not saying big, big grand ideas. I'm just thinking about on your day to day. Is there a possibility there could be a change there?
Well, I will soon be working for my sixth sheriff.
Right?
For almost the 30 years of my career, we focus on voluntary compliance. There's never been a mandate of you will issue a certain number of citations
Yeah.
or whatnot. So, discretion ultimately lies in the deputy. And there's some subjectivity there as far as if that deputy feels like that traffic stop can be resolved, or there can be some education delivered, and it can be either a verbal or a written warning, then that's what we believe in. And it's really up to the deputy on the severity of the issue or whether they believe the citation is the most appropriate thing. But I don't see a change in any philosophies coming on that. I mean, it's ultimately the discretion still lies in the individual deputies. Now, what we appreciate is getting that focused feedback on this is a problem intersection or a problem street, and then we can focus on that. And we've been doing that on Jefferson and Washington somewhat in the last month or so, just because when the roundabout was still being under construction, we see a lot of people just, taking Jefferson. We've been sitting and watching the intersection of Jefferson and 20 now for people still trying to make a left turn onto there. We've got a few people in our patrols in there. So, but I don't see a philosophical change.
And, I remember you doing Elm a few years ago, a couple years ago, people were flying down Elm past the fire station to get out of town and sometimes coming in hot. And I remember you emphasizing that as well.
Yeah.
Okay, that's helpful, not just for us, but for the public to hear as well, to make sure we know that there's not any big movement coming, that it's more kind of an industry standard, and that's good too. So it's just good to know that.
Yeah, it's
Go ahead.
good, and it's good to let the public know that
Yeah.
hearing from them helps you do a better job.
And I
Yeah.
think I've asked that question to you
Yeah.
before, actually, and that's the reason. I thought I knew the answer, but it's good just to hear it out loud every time we have this discussion about public safety, but so people know that we have it on our minds. And you're mostly education based, but you know what? If there's time to bring the hammer down on somebody, it can be done.
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Jennifer. I know you were waiting.
Yeah, thank you. One thing that obviously comes out of this is even though it's supposed to be public safety, a lot of the stuff blends into other areas of, especially when you get into the comments and stuff, we have a lot of comments regarding, state highways. I mean, we have 3 of them. And even though law enforcement has, you have much more flexibility than we do, when it comes to what we can do, like traffic calming or anything like that, structurally, we're very limited, unfortunately. But I think what we need to be doing is reading this for 2 things. One is there is the public safety component for the sheriff's office and our deputies. And the second one is gleaning out, all right, what is something that's not in your purview? You don't do curb ramps, you
Mhm.
don't stripe things,
Mhm.
and what we need to be pulling out between the lines of, where we need to be focusing. So, I was certainly picking up on a lot of stuff, but, a lot of, I'm not pointing fingers at ODOT, but a lot of it was ODOT stuff. And, and I think we should still be having an opportunity to address a lot of stuff from the roundabout to the east. Still supposed to be a traffic study, I understand. So, we have some opportunity there, I think, to take some of these comments. But I did have a question for you. And then did you get a chance to read through all the personal comments that people wrote?
I got through most of them.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
Was there anything, did you learn anything? I mean, was there anything that stood out to you or, like you said, oh, there's certain intersections or places that you thought was valid and worth following up on?
Yeah, I think sometimes citizens think we have more power than we do have to fix certain things. And I think the other thing that kind of gets lost on it is that we have so many tourists and just travel on the highways coming through here, that pure citations and pure presence doesn't solve all of those problems. You know what I mean? We can educate as much as we can for our residents and our, the kids going to and from school. But we have to remember too, we have state highways running through here and we have people that are migrating through here that we'll never see again, right? And so, how do we change the behavior of those people? It's really hard. We could issue citations to every driver we encountered and we would still have somebody speeding through town that was never going to come through here. So, I mean, there wasn't anything that really stood out that was like totally shocking, but I appreciate the fact that we're getting feedback on these issues, and I think as we look into the next contract and hopefully get to add another deputy, at least that's one goal I think the council had or agreed to before. I think that's important, looking forward to kind of filling some of those gaps that we do have. When they talk about increased presence and stuff, we'll have, several more hours a week being covered if we can accomplish that. So it's kind of a long question, or long answer, but nothing that was really stood out. Did you see anything that you were?
Oh, well, you do your job. I don't, no, but there was some places when people were being specific about an intersection or a street or things like that. Oh, I do have one question that has come up to people have asked this, and the confusion on how you can enforce it and if this is your job. But for instance, people, unrestricted diesels, things like that. I mean, that is technically against the law, right?
You're talking about like Jake break, that type of stuff with
No,
semi trucks?
more on like
or-
on personal pickup trucks.
Well,
Which have a tendency to be, I understand why people do it, but also it makes them much, much more loud and,
Dirty.
and dirty, yeah.
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 For varying degrees of intentional or not intentional, but.
Well, there have
yeah.
there have been cases here in Deschutes County where I would say rolling coal, ejecting the black smoke,
Yeah.
where the DA did actually prosecute someone for harassment for that. It's pretty rare, but what we can do is we can stop or issue citations for causing unreasonable noise. In the valley, they have the ability to cite or stop for visible emissions, which we don't have on this side of the
Okay.
mountain. And that's a pollution type thing, but we can stop vehicles for that, but we have to catch them. We have to be able to hear it and observe the violation in person. So, but we always ask people, give us feedback, give us license plates. We can go have conversations with people even after the fact if it's a recurring problem, but the citizens are our eyes and ears. And so we really need them to call in, or call the office, call dispatch and report it and give us the best information they can. So.
Okay.
So there were, as you probably noticed, many people mentioning Hood and Pine, and we are, the city is addressing that, and we are going to have a four-way stop there. So what I wanted to ask you, so this is my first question to ask you, and then the next one's to ask Carrie. So do you have a plan once that's established to, kind of survey that for a while?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we had talked about that with with staff and just trying to be present. My team knows that it's happening, and we'll work on some education and some traffic stops and things like that. And it's interesting in that driving through that intersection, especially people who aren't familiar with it, they kind of treated it like a four-way a lot of the times, where you'd see people stopping and pausing.
Because they're confused.
Yeah, and so I think that'll kind of eliminate some of that confusion there.
Yeah.
See that all the time. So yeah, we will be out and being present and enforcing that. Yeah.
Thank you.
And the hood stop signs are gonna have the flashers on them too. Is that right, Jackson?
Yeah.
Not the hood, excuse me, the Pine Street ones. Yeah, okay,
The new ones.
just to make sure.
New ones.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The new-
And then one last question on, to Carrie. So I noticed one person mentioned what I thought was a really good idea. And that was to have four-way stops all the way around the village green because of the children and the people traffic and stuff. And I just wondered, do we as a city, are we going to get back to people and say, oh, that's a good idea and, we're going to look into this, or or do we have
I
a
think
way of doing that? since
This
it's
is
a
their
survey?
opportunity. I think we
Yeah.
can put out on our announcements that the survey is available online to
Mhm.
read
Mhm.
and or maybe connect it with and this workshop audio video
Okay,
to do. There were each question that we asked for feedback on, I think it was like 238 or so questions or answers.
Yeah.
So that would be difficult to get back to the individuals.
yeah,
And we don't have everybody's, some came
Name,
in anonymous.
yeah.
So we don't
Yeah.
actually have everybody's contacts on those, so. that would be-
So-
But did the article in the Nugget not say that the four-way stop on Hood and Pine was due to a traffic safety survey that was
Yeah.
conducted?
Yeah, now I've moved from that and I'm talking about four-way stops all the way around
Right,
Village
that-
Green.
But
Yeah.
that was a result of the survey. That
Yeah.
was the one thing that was big enough and important enough and had enough response that it worked its way through the channels and we dealt with it.
Yes.
That doesn't mean every suggestion in there
No,
is
I'm
gonna
not,
be something.
I'm not saying every suggestion
Well-
should, but I think this particular suggestion is a good idea.
So I can elevate that to
Yeah.
Paul
Yeah,
and have him, the next traffic study that they do, maybe take a look at that and the understanding of why on that. So
Mhm.
I can elevate that to that. And then, again, like I said, we've got this available online. People can watch the video of tonight's meeting
Yeah.
to know that their question was brought up and where that might go.
okay, thank you very much.
That brings me to another question. When's our next, do we have to finish Barkley before we do another traffic study and figure out how the whole system is working as one piece?
Transportation system plan?
Yeah,
Or another
yeah.
traffic, or, yeah, traffic. and-
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what level, you would recommend. I'm not saying to do anything other than, I mean, isn't it the system's already changed just because of the new roundabout. So there's different patterns than there ever were before. And Barclay's gonna change at least twice if we have two phases. So do we just need to wait and kind of be a little patient and kind of get everything installed first before we do that
I
next?
think we're working off a 2021 TSP, with a couple projects completed, but there's still a slate of projects there.
Yeah.
In Barkley, the additional phases, Adams, things like that.
Right.
In my mind, I've been thinking about the UGB and, we're at the point where like the system is looked at with built out of existing city limits and existing buildable lands and things like that. And when we start looking at expanding our boundaries with UGB and forecasting, annexations and things like that, then you probably want to start a new planning cycle.
How often are they generally done? Are they they're about 5
Depends on how
years?
fast they're growing.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
guess.
under 10 at
Yeah.
least, most cities that are slow, just
Maybe 10.
maybe like 10 years.
Yeah,
but
okay.
Here, I think it's been more of
I
like.
just want to keep it on our radar, just so, that's why it's good just to bring it up once in a while, even in something
Yeah.
only somewhat related. Okay.
I was gonna just make a couple comments if that's okay. One
Sure.
of the things that stood out to me, in the survey, that I think we should be proud of and thanks to Lieutenant is how many people have had interactions with the department.
Mhm.
Which I think again is like how many people are engaged with city events and things like that. But, over half the respondents have engaged with an officer, not because they've been stopped at a traffic or they had an emergency call, but because of a community event that they attended and DCSO was there. And then the non-emergency call suggests that folks are calling because there's probably some quality of life stuff they want to call about, right? It's the loose dog or someone's parked where they shouldn't be or things like that, which again kind of reflects what the kind of tone of the survey is. Things are good. Now it's up to us to maintain that, right? And how to keep things in this condition where folks feel pretty safe. They feel like, oh yeah, I see officers out there, maybe some more patrols because the city's growing and we got more traffic. But I think that's a good indicator. I just want to say thanks to DCSO for having that community-oriented policing and being present and being a partner.
Well, and I mean, he's at every other meeting I go to, this is our second meeting today and, we've done 2 others this week already, I think. And so, we appreciate your involvement in the community, just overall, obviously.
I had a question for Carrie.
Here we go.
What was the definition of a community support program?
I don't know that we had a definition of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because they wanted 20%
Wanted-
responded that they wanted that. And I didn't know does that mean they want more community events that we're a part of? Do they want
more educational seminar kind of things,
Yeah.
presentations, that type of thing? Is that what they're looking for?
Yeah, I think we could look into some of the comments maybe and dig a little deeper and see what they're asking in that regard. I think Neighborhood Watch was something that they asked for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, you know, the National Night Out stuff, they get
Yeah.
information. I mean, we've been talking about doing like an emergency preparedness fair and stuff, and that could be sort of like how to secure your home. And we got dark skies now. So, you know, some people have concerns about, you know, lighting around their homes and things. And so maybe outreach by neighborhoods of just how, you know, they stay safe and being a neighborhood, you know, watch and things like that.
Yeah, and we have a way of doing the neighborhood watch, but it's mostly gonna be by neighborhood, like each HOA. I mean, we definitely can help them build their program, but it has to be kind of HOA driven, like them reaching out to us. So, I mean, we're open to getting involved in that, but it's basically the HOA kind of organizing that's them and us advising them a little bit
Yeah.
on how to do it and getting them the materials, but it's kind of led by that group. I've done that over in the Redmond area before, and it really has to be kind of HOA led, which works the best. It's not us telling them what they should do. It's us helping them kind of help develop their program. So we haven't done that out here yet, but kind of wanting to push the HOAs to kind of reach out to us and self-organize, and then we can kind of help them.
Does that work with self-organized neighborhoods that are not HOAs?
Sure. Yeah, you could organize it by a certain geographic area, or we're Coyote Springs, or we're south side of Sisters Group or whatever, where you could just develop a certain area and say, this is our group and we're going to take ownership of it. And that's where it works best, is you get, you get some people that are involved, because you can have block captains and all kinds of different things. And the website for Neighborhood Watch is pretty robust, and you can go in and order signs and all kinds of things, but it's kind of better if it's organized by the individual neighborhood. So.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. I think there's going to be more conversations about it. If there's anything that people want to discuss at the city council level, obviously we have a goal setting next year. So, you know, keep it in mind. I guess it's Jennifer and I will be the two people at this table that'll be keeping that in mind as far as next year, but obviously you're welcome to bring good ideas too, you guys. So, just because you're not on council doesn't mean you can't be involved. So thank you. Any final questions or anything?
I think I just had a comment in regards of, I totally understood why you went with the electronic
Mhm.
one this time, but it was kind of disappointing that the
Turnout.
the turnout wasn't great, and it was very specific demographics, we were missing large demographics, at least age-wise, in this. So, yeah, next time, if there's a way that we can make a better effort to get more involvement, then that would be great. Cause it was just, I was feeling like I was very much hearing from one part of the community and not the whole community. It was pretty clear. So
Is there a way to do a hybrid? Or is that weird?
It could be done. It would
Be
be
like
a
a
lot more time
Scantron one?
intensive yeah, for that type, but we had done them all by hand prior, and we were able to target really just folks within the city limits for that one, and this one was, not targeted to that, because somebody could have seen it on a social media site and taken the survey, which is a fair assessment, because those folks use our streets and are part of the community. So that's what you would miss in that case, right, is if you were doing a mailing to our utility counts. But we could look at it in a different way. Things change all the time.
Yeah.
When they.
In 2 years, it might be completely
Yeah.
different way to do things. So, yeah.
When they have those forums, when the sheriff has their forums and or when the fire department has their forums, might be good to have hard copy surveys that people could take to turn in at a certain time.
Yeah. And we did have, the people could come pick up hard copy surveys if they wanted to.
Okay,
We mentioned that a number of times.
okay.
All right, well, we'll just.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's always ways to make it a little better, I guess.
but yeah, thank you very
Yeah.
much for
Yeah,
that.
good stuff. I mean, this is,
So, Holly, thank you.
Good.
I think this boils down to what our most important thing is, and that's just keeping the community safe, right? I mean, if it's just the most important thing we do, it doesn't matter how you do it or that's what we have to do. So we take it pretty serious, and so we appreciate it. Thanks for the effort. Okay. Next up is, review of our transportation hub naming process.
get up and come back to the table. What we'd like to do tonight is kind of review, I'd like to review the proposed process and kind of get a consensus to move forward with the naming process for the mobility hub, which is under construction right now, formerly known as the East Portal.
I like that.
You know, one of your goals was good governance, and within that, you wanted to establish that naming policy, which we did in early September, I believe, late August. So we had that process, and we left that process fairly open because we knew that each building, each park, whatever that was, could look a little different on how we did it. So we sat down and came up with a process for this mobility hub. And let's just go through that really quickly. And then any feedback you have, if you want to change things, if you want to do it completely differently, we can do whatever you'd like to do on this. This is your first run at this policy. So one of the first things, particularly with this site, was to research the history of the area because it is the east entrance to the scenic highway. So there is some history there and trying to figure out anything else we might know about that spot that could help us with the naming protocol. So Rebecca was going to take charge of that piece. We would go to the Parks Board, and I have sent this to both Paul and Scott, and they gave their head nod blessing to liking the way the process worked. So define the theme. So the Parks Board, if they wanted to define the theme of how they would like to do it, whether it was going to be their theme was people, was geography, was plants, whatever they wanted to do, they would work on that. They would also develop a short list of names that they were comfortable with. From that, we would like to engage the community in voting, choosing, helping choose that name, somewhat like we did with the theme for the roundabout art. So not saying that it would be the name, but like really getting the good input on what they thought. And then have the council vote for that final decision. You guys get to have the final say on the naming policy of what something gets named. Do a public announcement and implement the new name. So it's pretty straightforward. Just want some feedback on how you'd like to move forward. If you like the process, if you want to see something different, it'll develop. We have a short timeline on the back page. It's a pretty fast pace, particularly with the Parks Board because they only meet every other month. So we were trying to get some of it in play. First thought was we'd like to get it with the new Parks Board as they were all appointed, but then we realized their first meeting's not till February. And so that would just push the process out a little bit. We can still do that, but that's why we started to kind of start looking at it at their December meeting. So I'm really just open to any kind of questions or changes, or do you like it as it is? Comments?
So one of the things that I liked about the process was the inclusion of public input. And then I noticed on item procedure 5A, the last sentence was naming proposals may also be solicited from the public, but we don't really have a process for how they would propose. We don't have a proposal form
So
for them.
we could do that if that's how you wanted to do this particular thing. We may say, the Northwest Park.
Yeah.
That one we might say, you know what, we're going to let the public have at it. You throw whatever you want out there and we'll do that. And we would probably do that in the survey. I don't think it would be necessarily like an online type survey, or maybe they could fill it out in person. This one, we're not proposing that they give the name up front. We're proposing that they,
I
similar to the
understand.
art,
Yeah.
which was what was in our, in the art piece, when we were doing the roundabout, there were the 5 themes that are in our code that art has to live around. That's what we use for that. It would kind of be to that degree too. Maybe there's 5 or 6 names they come up with and the public gets to, maybe
Right.
they get to rank them.
Yeah. And I understood that, but maybe it's the time constraint that's why we're not having the public have the opportunity to come up with names themselves without having a list.
I think with the particular space, because it has a history,
Mm-hmm.
and we'd like to have some education around that history, and because the Parks Board has a group that has been appointed to do work like this for this particular space, that's why we went that route. But you guys can do whatever you want. If the
Yeah.
council chooses that you want to go out and have the public just come up with names, that's
No, I was
fine.
just trying to
Yeah,
understand
you
the
can- so-
reasoning.
Yeah,
yeah.
so it could be anything. This is
Okay.
just the process that,
Yeah.
I kind of like this for the first one because it's a little more structured in that sense.
So to finish my thought, then, with your input on why, I'm personally fine with this process, the way you have it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I agree, and I think that I kind of like how it's a little more, it's the first one out of the gate. Let's kind of keep it a little structured and see how it goes. And then, you know, you're right, the Northwest Park is a little more fun. It's a brand new, you know, facility that I think more people will use probably on average than the transportation mobility hub. Maybe not, but it's kind of a fun amenity, you know what I mean? And I think that that may be a place where we start branching out a little bit and maybe have some different ways.
Well, Carrie's right. I mean, it's ultimately up to you guys. There's enough
Oh, I
flexibility in
agree.
policy, but having some guardrails in the process, this has more than say, just a wide open process. And even a wide open process, you might want to have some level of guardrails. Otherwise, you will get a lot of submissions, a lot of very interesting, a lot
Yeah.
of maybe not
Stupid.
appropriate. Yeah. And so you filter that maybe through the Parks Board to run some sort of like
Absolutely.
campaign or something that then they can filter for you and then.
Oh, no,
back out.
I totally agree. I like the way this is set up. What do you think, Jennifer? Andrea?
I think it's because it's a transit center or mobility hub or whatever we're gonna call it. You know, I feel like there are some, no pun intended, guardrails that we need to be cognizant of, you know, versus like a park.
Yeah.
You know, I think
Yeah.
the name has to be very clear of what it is and what you can get there
I
and.
mean, it's not going to be park and bark.
Yeah. Um, so I'm much more comfortable with this process for this property. And the only thing I'd say or recommend is, for the history of it, also to, contact Bill Anthony.
Mhm.
He was a
Yeah, the
former
ranger.
district ranger and knows, you know, at least in the last 20, 30 years, he knows a lot about that property and its development and stuff. So I think he'd be very helpful in this process.
Great.
Do we have a long-term history on it yet, or was that gonna be a later?
So she's gonna bring that to the Parks Board.
Okay,
So that for their first, which we can share with the council as well. So Rebecca is the lead on this project. I was just getting this process kicked off. But she'll take it through the Parks Board and all the way through.
anything you want to add?
No, I just want to make sure that it ends up a name that defines, makes it obvious what it is. As opposed to, you know, Joe Blow's Park. Or, you know, I mean, if the history comes out in a way that then it doesn't appear that it has anything to do with transportation, then I think we've missed the thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want to have to name,
Yeah,
tell the name and then explain what it is. Is a
Not
it's a
right.
subtitle or something.
Right.
Yeah, I would say hand her the ball and let her run with it.
see what we come up with, and no pressure on the Parks Board in the sense that if they don't find something that they feel is, oh boy, people will be excited about these options, that, you know, we can punt to Plan B and do more of a survey kind of thing, but with some guardrails.
Or just use Rebecca's idea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank-
I think it's fun that we have a naming process and we're gonna use it. That's kind of fun.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Okay. So, that's the end of our, agenda part of the workshop. But we did provide time for visitor communication. Do we have any?
Yes.
We do. David Bechtel.
Hi, David. If you wouldn't mind joining us here, at the table. And if you,
Hold the button down for a little bit and then I'll.
Joe's gonna help out, I think. Thank you, Joe. You're on.
Got it.
Go ahead and speak into it.
Okay, I
Hi.
first wanted to say that I thought the surveys were both very good, and I was really pleased with them. I've been really appreciative of the sheriff's departments, and all of my interactions with them have been very positive. With respect to the sheriff, since we're doing a new contract with them, et cetera, I would request that you consider having them on their forms when they respond to a disturbance, put a checkbox to indicate whether or not it's associated with an STR. One of the problems in this town is we talk about STR problems or minimize the problems because we don't really generate the data to know what the problem is or isn't. And one of those issues is there's no communication really between the sheriff's department and the city. And so there should be a checkbox and they should report that information regularly to the city so that you have statistics to really know. Because, you know, you've relied on self-reporting by STR owners, which is sort of a genuine, a major conflict of interest. And first of all, there may be unlicensed, we know there are unlicensed STRs in the city, but you surveyed the licensed STRs, and so there's no problem with the licensed STRs. But more importantly, at meetings where we've just even brought this up, we have had just a lot of people complaining about issues with STRs in their neighborhoods. And either the city isn't aware of those things because it doesn't want to be, which I could understand that, you know, you don't want to have a problem that you have to address. Or, you know, or is it willful ignorance, or is it just that you haven't really thought about that? And this wouldn't be something that's terribly difficult. I mean, we had a hearing, I think we had a workshop with the sheriff's department some time ago. And they said, yeah, all we need is a little checkbox form on our police report. And we could do that. It's not a big deal. So that's a request on that. And on the traffic safety stuff, I thought all those comments in there were tremendous. Visibility of stop signs and crosswalks is a big issue for me. Even on Hood, I'm driving down Hood and I'm constantly watching for which cars are pulling out of the parking spaces. And I have to constantly remind myself that, oh, there's a stop sign by the bank. And that's a real easy one and in Elm Street, it's a real easy one to just drive right through and go, oh, no, you know. So if that, for example, had the little lights,
The
the
blinker.
blinking lights would be, you know, your attention would be brought to that. So that's just a thought. You know, personally, I don't think bikes should be on Cascade at all. That we should have good parking for bicyclists so that they can use the side streets more. I mean, much bike traffic uses Hood Avenue, and that's a great place for them. And, you know, I also recognize that it's a state highway, but boy, if you could get not only the tractor trailers, but big trucks pulling camp trailers and all that kind of stuff on the bypass, it would really help. Because they also exacerbate the visibility problem big time. And that is an issue for a lot of people and tourists, and I think everybody who's down there is always a little bit on edge if they've got to cross Cascade. So it's not a problem that's been fixed. It's there. And other than that, you know, you did a survey, right? And to do a survey and file it away doesn't really reward public participation. What I would suggest is you've done a survey and you've got 20 pages of comments, although there's really probably about 10 basic comments that just reiterate themselves. Maybe what you might want to consider is responding to that survey, either on the website or some other way, with kind of an action plan to say, you know, we've gotten all these comments and here's the ones that we're working on for the next couple of years. Make people feel like their input is not just asked for, but acknowledged. And those are my comments.
All right.
Other than that, I'm real happy with this part of the process.
Well, thank you. We don't always get positive feedback, so that's refreshing. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're about to go through staff, and thank you. I think you're the only communicator. Kathy, you're not? Okay. We're going to go through staff comments and then we'll have council comments too. And you might hear some of those things. You might hear some response back, possibly. So on to staff comments. That would be
Yeah.
Wheels.
Only the second time we've done this during a workshop. That's great. No, those were great comments. We were talking about a similar item today in terms of going back to the public about what we heard in the partnership meeting with our folks that are working with us on the houselessness meetings and the follow-up to the community conversation. And so yeah, very similar ideas of, you know, we need to answer questions that came up during that meeting, you know, yeah, let people know they've been heard and kind of what we're doing about it. So we did meet for a little over an hour today with our partners, talked about having continuing meetings with that group, kind of went over all the data and all the comments that we had from the 95 folks that attended and some of the written comments. We've talked about putting out a sort of a call for folks to weigh in on the ideas and concerns and questions that came up during the community conversation. So a lot to come on that, and there'll be press releases and release of information and more updates on our website about sort of the outcomes from the community conversation on houselessness and the next steps. But again, it was great to have folks again in the room and being a part of that.
Did we decide to do an executive summary, kind of a one pager, just to kind of,
Yeah,
just
I
kind of
think we can
highlight
cover
a
that.
couple of some of that? Okay.
Another meeting this week that the mayor and Councilor Letts was at was our wildfire mitigation group. So they're continuing to meet on a monthly basis. The topics for this meeting, insurance and sort of the efforts there to mitigate some of the concerns about folks not being renewed for insurance or seeing insurance going skyrocketing. And so Councilor Letts had some experience and knowledge about what's going on with insurance. The mayor had some great comments. And of course, our partners include, Fire District and Forest Service and ODF. And so it's good to have everybody, and it's just great coordination and good updates too on the fire map and where that process is. It's not final, so that's why no one's seen anything yet. Originally, the soft date was October 1st. They're still pouring over all the public input they got on the draft maps, and kind of anticipating that we'll see some changes again in the map. So waiting on that. So we just had an election. And just one thing I put on your calendar, if you're interested, is the new trainings for elected officials. So I think you've seen that from the league, not just for new electeds. Of course, we want our new elected officials to attend that, but for our continuing, and Gary's not here, are also invited to that, and it's totally free for this training here in Region 9. That's at the Redmond City Hall on January 8th. So we have already got 5 slots saved there, but happy to sign you up. And then on a bit of the kind of unfortunate news, but hopefully will turn out to be good news, is that our lovely stallion our bronze statue was hit by a vehicle and took out a leg. And the other, points where it was the tail, and other points got cracks in it. So it was not the structural integrity was compromised, and so the public works team was quick to scramble and get it hauled off. And actually, it's under the care of Ponderosa Forge to be repaired. It's probably going to take at least a week and maybe longer, depending on how long it takes to kind of do the fix. But fingers crossed that it'll be all fixed up and brought back to the pedestal.
Do we need a naming process for our stallion?
I think it has a name. It's something stallion, right? Wild stallion.
Okay,
I-
just checking.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
So since it's been compromised, at one point, a person raised the idea of having that statue be the center of our new roundabout. And I was just wondering, it would not be as expensive as maybe something else. And it's a good spot for it, and most likely it wouldn't be hit again, being in the center of the roundabout. So I don't know, I just thought that might be something we could think about as a council.
I've had conversations with artists that do roundabout stuff, and they generally say that that stallion is kind of not big enough. It's actually would look pretty puny up there on top of that hill. And roundabout art is generally a little bigger and broader than that particular piece of art is. And I think people are fairly used to it where it's at, although I have heard that comment and suggestion before. But I think we've talked about a couple of new rocks maybe in front of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is the second incident. There was another one that didn't do any damage, but hit the pedestal a few years ago. So we're looking at putting some big boulders to kind of block this kind of scenario. Yeah, from staff comments, this idea has come up and we've had some internal conversations, and it's actually a pretty good location as you come down Cascade to see
Yeah.
that stallion standing
is-
there. And
it's
you'd have to
beautiful.
replace it with something else too.
Yeah.
We have the call for artists going back out I think this week,
Okay.
and that's going to close in January. So we're going to make another run at trying to, and we have a budget for new art in the roundabout with the landscaping and everything that goes with it. So kind of hoping to just play through that process and see if we get a better, proposal there that the committee's happy to forward.
Thank you.
Speaking of the roundabout, so you've seen the rock is in place, the lovely cinders everywhere. The sidewalk work is continuing this week, and then there's going to be some more rock mulch that's going to be put down, like in the pond area. And then I think they're pretty close to done and ready for a punch list. Obviously, we still have landscaping to work on, and we're talking about bringing on a landscape architect to kind of help with that and kind of integrating that with the roundabout art. But that would be the next phase. And so what you see is pretty close to, completion with the signage now and the lighting, and kind of the bare minimum landscape. Other public works items here, we got the Barkley bids, Barkley improvements phase 1. Bids came in yesterday, day before, yesterday? Yesterday. Our engineer's estimate was 850,000 to $1 million. And we have a parent low bid that's below that by about $37,000. So again, good news. That's I think the third project in a row or fourth project that we've seen bids come in at or below our engineer's estimate. So good sign there. Engineers going through those bids, and that will be on the council agenda for next.
Can you remind the public what that's for, that bid?
Yeah, so Barkley, the improvements for phase 1 this is about adding the 8-foot multi-purpose pathway, straightening out the street to facilitate truck traffic and a speed limit of 30 miles per hour, and then changing the intersection at Locust and Barkley and Camp Polk so that you have a thoroughfare basically coming north to proceed onto Barkley to help with the whole alternate route. And so
In
that's
Camp?
one of the things that's going to encourage truckers to take that route. And we want to do everything we can do to encourage them, because we can't require them, but we can make it
Encourage
accessible
them.
for them, so that they feel like it is worth it seems like it's a longer distance, but it probably is a faster it's faster in some respects and safer and would be very much appreciated. So and I had one trucker say, well, you're going to have a tough time because the donut shop is on Cascade.
The donut shop.
Well, they
And-
just don't know about FICA.
Well, that's what I said. I said, and they're there at like 5 o'clock in the morning. And so, that's going to be tough. And so I reminded them, we've got a donut shop or not really a donut shop, but
Coffee shop.
anyway, another place. And hopefully there will be a good spot for them to pull over. That's
Yeah.
going to be an issue as well.
Yeah.
The other big change is there will be a stop sign at Camp Polk coming south at that corner right there. So,
yeah, and that's going to.
and so a lot of curb work and, smoothing that corner out. There's a lot of work to do there.
There is, and that's going to be, requiring drivers to change behavior there, which, there's.
That might be one of those flashy ones.
Yeah, that folks, I think, will get the idea. But
And this phase 1, it goes from Locust to, is there a stopping point physically or?
just past FICA, right?
Yeah, the road at Fika.
It goes, I think
yeah.
it just goes 1 block to the
Yeah.
post office.
Yes.
Yeah,
She's asking about
To the
Phase one,
west.
How long it is.
the first phases to Fika, I believe.
mhm.
Okay.
Sun Ranch Drive.
Sorry.
So what was I going to ask? I think I've lost it. Sorry.
All right.
Okay.
Feel free to interrupt as I keep
Okay.
going here.
All right.
So speaking of construction and projects, so we talked about Eastport, we just talked about Eastport. But the work there right now, the goal is to get as much of the subgrade stuff done. So they got started right off the bat last week. Most of the earthwork, the grubbing, the, shrubs and trees and stuff, that's done. You can see the road and everything. And so they're working on the underground utilities and trying to get all this upgrade stuff done so that perhaps we even get the, base rock in before winter, and then they can come in and do a lot of the paving right off the bat in the spring.
I remembered my question.
Okay.
So, you mentioned the truck route. We can't have it as a truck route, but how do cities do that then? How do cities make it a truck route off of a highway?
It's just an alternate route that we suggest, but we can't, it's not a true, it's not a,
Freight route, then we'd have to apply to ODOT.
Yeah.
And it would
Oh,
have to meet certain criteria.
we'd have to turn it into alternate 20 going around. And it would,
gotcha.
It doesn't.
Yeah,
It doesn't
gotcha.
meet that
Thank you.
criteria.
Thank you.
And
there may not even be the right of way to make that work.
Yeah, I mean, Paul's got a good explanation for this. There's a potential to do a little bit more of that encouragement with like the, during busy times. So the reader board sign now coming in, telling people take the alternate route. Once the second phase is in, I think it's a better shot to then work with the state on getting that designated as the alternate route that then
Oh,
maybe
okay.
hits the driver's apps and stuff like that to get people rerouted and get trucks
Oh, good.
rerouted. So
So it's
And
not a-
at the COAC meeting, the trucking industry individual that's there poo-pawed our truck route majorly and said, "Oh, we don't make those decisions.
Hmm.
Our decision on how we go through Sisters is made and is in our vehicle when we take off."
Yeah,
And,
There's some technology that we have to deal
yeah.
with.
Well, once
They were- they're
once it's
using
approved as an alternate truck route, it would be on their maps, on their software.
if ODOT appointed that as a
yeah.
true freight route,
Yeah.
not an alternate truck route,
Ah.
freight route,
Ah,
then it has to meet certain criteria, and they kind of said, no, you
Yeah.
won't meet that.
okay,
So
all right,
we just have to encourage as best we can.
okay.
weather's churning. We got maybe a La Nina coming. So Public Works has been doing a great job of getting everything ready and winterized. You've seen the irrigation systems blown out and all that. You got the little stakes now at the curbs. You've noticed probably. Our snow removal contract for downtown has been renewed and executed. So they're all ready to go. And we got the plows ready and everything. So if we do start getting winter weather, they're ready. Also, if you noticed lately coming through town at night, lights are up. More to come on that with the banners and the snowflakes going up. I think the week of the 17th, so later this month. So in time for the whole celebration, the holiday palooza and all that. But it's very nice when the light and the daylight savings time ends that we have lights now going.
Speaking of cold weather, are you going to talk about the
The resolution.
yes,
I wasn't, except for I just kind of been updating council individually about that we plan to bring in front of you on the 20th.
Okay.
The resolution for
got the date. Sorry.
authorizing emergency cold weather shelters under certain conditions. And so we'll have those conditions as part of the resolution or attachment to. And yeah, council will be able to discuss and adopt that on the 20th. Something that we may be coming back to you with next meeting is sort of just direction on the floodplain stuff that you may have heard about at LOC or otherwise. Our planning staff, they've been attending a lot of webinars and meetings about changes that are now required for us to update our floodplain ordinance. And basically how fast track this came after a lawsuit that sat for many years. It was a 2009 lawsuit by, I forget the name of the Audubon Society, or what they're called now, but to protect more endangered species. There's new rules now that impact all the communities that have national, flood insurance program, and that includes us. And so by December 1st, we're required to kind of choose a pathway, either doing a permit by permit analysis. So anytime somebody wants to build in the floodplain, they would have to do an analysis and basically pay for a consultant to do sort of like analysis shows there's no net harm to any kind of species or habitat. The other path is to adopt a model ordinance that has been put together by FEMA or just prohibit all development in the floodplain, which I don't think any community is really pursuing that option. Our default, I think, is to look at a permit by permit while we work through like the model ordinance procedures and update our code. We don't have any pending development right now in any of the flood areas, which is good. We have until July of 2025 to adopt a new ordinance. The biggest impact would be anyone who does want to build right now or submits an application would have to go through just probably an added step in cost to kind of present analysis and include an application. So I might have Scott come and talk to you a little bit more about that on the 20th to give you a heads up and kind of get confirmation that we want to just default to a permit by permit until we can kind of build into the work plan next year to update the ordinance. Our feedback, LLC's feedback, and the governor has even written a letter, is that the timelines that they put on cities to try to work through a process of updating a flood or, ordinance was way too fast. You basically had just a couple months to kind of to work through public, hearings and planning commissions and city councils. But at least we have, the time to basically default to one of these three options and then work on it for implementation.
I wouldn't be surprised if somehow that gets extended, but I can't say for sure because it's FEMA, right? So FEMA waited and waited and waited, and all of a sudden they just dumped it on all the states. It wasn't just our state. It's just a little harder with our state with our land use laws, which are a little more complex, and just throwing it at all the cities. So
It takes them 5 years to create it and they give us 2 months to.
yeah, the Oregon Mayors Association part of the program was pretty funny because FEMA became the new four-letter word of the day. So yeah, I'll be interested to see what we can
And
come up with.
I think AOC and LOC and will need to get together and take a deep breath and say, how fast forward do we want to move on anything that is federally mandated?
Right.
With the new administration in there, who's to say how much is going to be?
Pulled,
Yeah,
Maybe,
maybe, but that's
Yeah.
it. I mean, you just,
maybe.
talk about
you
throwing
wanna go
uncertainty in
crazy
this.
Quick around, and then find out, oh, well, there was enough complaints that.
The new FEMA guy goes, I don't care.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing that, that we have to deal with really just what's in our city. Obviously, we're supportive of other cities as well. Well, here's the thing, most of our stuff on the creek is built out. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
so if,
A
you know,
lot of potential activity.
there are a few lots that haven't been built on, but they're very low numbers. I think it's under a handful. So you're talking about properties that may do an addition or something like that. And if you,
We have Indian Ford Meadows if we expand that way.
right, so there's, and that's not happening anytime fast either. So it's really going to be interesting. I think that it's probably a good idea to do permit by permit until we find out more. If that's, at least it pushes it out a little bit, and, it's kind of a burden, but at the same time, if it complies, it complies, right? So
Yeah. And
I'll be interesting to listen to Scott.
yeah, and speaking of Scott, he's been really busy doing a lot of UGB outreach, going to HOAs, the Sisters Business Association. I think he met the other day here with the Better Living and Sisters folks. So doing just a lot of like just that presentation. I think you've seen a few times, and I think the feedback's been really good. I think people are appreciative that the city's meeting them and going out there and explaining what's going on. And so far, the feedback has been mostly positive and constructive. And then the community open house is scheduled now for December 9th. That's a Monday, so we're not doing a Sunday, but it'll be a Monday at the new elementary school. And that's a similar sort of, input opportunity on the concept, the conceptual alternatives for the expansion areas and the study areas and things like that. So that's a broad, like everybody's invited. There'll be a brief presentation as part of that, and then mostly Q&A and small breakout groups, kind of, a similar model what we did with the community conversation on houselessness. A little more of technical presentation just to give people the background information on that too, though. And then defensible space, I think that's going to the Planning Commission this week. So those code amendments, and then hopefully early next year we'll be in the process of public hearings and getting that in front of council for adoption. So that's continues to move forward. And then on to affordable housing as a last update, we have the potential for seeing large street commons, their cottage development, uh, going to the planning commission as submitted, potentially on November 21st. I think is the next planning commission meeting after this week, and then potentially a public hearing in December on that project. So yeah, one maybe final development project this year, and it's looking to be the Large Street Commons Habitat for Humanity project.
And it's Large Street Commons because Adams.
Yeah,
Commons-
they
Adams
finally changed that
It
name.
was already taken.
Was already taken.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
We know what to call it. No naming process necessary for that particular project.
And one last thing, Dark Sky, I think they're on their third round or the third draft. You know, Scott's been working with a committee on that, and with a lot of other folks. And I think they're in their final draft there, and then they're gonna pretty it up and submit as our final application. And it's a good process where they give feedback on each draft so they can, keep making improvements to it so that when it finally gets submitted, it's pretty final and looks good and everything. So we're really close to getting that final application in to get certified. So,
Yay.
yeah. Any questions?
Are we gonna hear anything this year about our affordable housing project?
We are anticipating that. We've been working with Clayton. He's out of town for the next couple of weeks, but we've been kind of exchanging emails and stuff. We hope to have an update coming to you guys, either from Clayton, doing like a workshop meeting where they're at with their cost estimates. And then also we still have the agreement for council to review, the actual grant agreement. And we've been working a lot over the last month on just the language in the grant agreement and working with our legal and their legal. But we're hoping to keep moving forward with that.
Is that January though, probably, realistically?
Well, per the county, we were originally supposed to have it, but we'd like to have an update provided to council first.
All right.
Are we gonna run into
question.
any issues with ARPA dollars on that, the timing?
Not necessarily. I mean, our concern is really construction and when it gets completed. If we had more ARPA dollars, it'd be helpful, but we don't.
All right, is it up to us now?
Yep.
Okay, anybody want to go first?
Okay, I completed the letter. I did a second draft. All I changed was that it was to the president, and what I'm talking about is a letter from city councilors in support of the Equal Rights Amendment becoming a constitutional amendment, and as proposed by the League of Women Voters nationally in all 50 states. And so I made it so it's just to the president, and then I made it so it's CC'd to Senator Jeff Merkley, Senator Ron Wyden, and Representatives Lori Chavez DeReamer. And if you're happy with it, I have a nice linen copy that we can each sign, and I would mail it to each of their addresses in Washington, D.C. I could also mail it to the several other addresses that these senators and the representative has. And on each of those, I think I should put my own return address because this isn't from the city. So unless you think I should put another different address, I don't know.
No, I think you should use the city's, it's our address too as a council, right?
Is that correct? Should I be able to use the city address?
You're welcome to use our
PO box,
physical address if you like.
the PO box or no? Or you mean this address?
You can use this address. That's
Oh,
fine.
okay.
Yeah, we're not.
Okay.
This is our chamber, so.
All right, perfect.
Yeah.
And I'll use this address. So did you have changes? Are you ready to sign it or?
Mhm. And I really appreciate being listed as president, Andrea. I'll be the first female president
Mm.
in the country. Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I'll just pass it around and you can sign where your name is.
Okay,
Yep, and date
thank
it.
you.
Yep, thank you.
Did you have anything else?
Nope, that was it.
Okay.
I wanted to give people the opportunity, if Jennifer, you or Michael are considering taking over transportation as an issue or houselessness as an issue in the next year, and I know, you've got new people coming on and you don't know what their interests are going to be. I am not going to be able to make the COAC Transportation Board meeting on Thursday, November 14th at 3 p.m. at Redmond Public Works. If somebody wanted to go to that, to just have an idea of what that's like, that would be great.
What time? I'm sorry, what time?
I'm sorry, it's at 3 p.m. And I can forward you the packet or whatever, or let you know where it is. I have a first meeting I haven't been able to attend, and it might be the last of the year, who knows?
So that's COAC at Redmond City Hall. I can make it.
Redmond Public Works.
Oh, excuse me, that's
Yeah.
over on the other side, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah, I know
the
where
other
it's
side of
at.
The tracks, and you can't park in the Public Works complex. You have to park outside the gate where their office area is, because we take up too much of their space.
Well, I got to park in there one time, but it was after hours, so
Yeah, they let us, all kinds of groups use their training
Yeah.
facility, which is very generous of them.
I can do it unless you absolutely want to.
I'm running all over the county that day, but I can definitely do it. If it's more convenient for you, that's fine.
I've got-
Interesting for me because, I'm the chair of BPAC now, so I mean, it kind of dovetails in that respect, but
I'm running around too. I've got Black Butte Ranch at 10, Sun River at 12.
you're doing a little more. I have Redmond and Bend,
And you be going back and forth?
going back to Redmond.
Well, that's
But
something
yours
to
sounds a
think
little
of.
more,
If you are standardly having issues on Thursdays,
Mhm.
all my houseless meetings and COAC meetings are all on Thursdays. So that might be a determining factor in whether or not you,
Why don't you send it to both of us and
Yeah.
we'll figure it out.
one of us will go.
and we are having a coordinated houseless response committee meeting. That's tomorrow, isn't it? Yeah, tomorrow. And that is the one where we're going to have the discussion about how we might move into a regional dynamic. And we have quite a bit of information on how it looks, but I have no idea how it's going to come out. There are 3 members of the Charro Board of 5 that are no longer going to be elected officials January 1st. So it will be a completely a very different committee in January. So that will be interesting to see how it progresses. But anybody who wants to, you can zoom in if you want to see what happens there. It's available.
What date again?
That's tomorrow at
tomorrow.
10 in the morning.
I cannot do that.
And I'm not sure whether we're going to have a December meeting on that one either. It hasn't been,
Yeah, that's
Fine,
something.
See
yeah.
how tomorrow goes.
yeah, we'll see how tomorrow goes. Big time. And the homeless, no, the
Regional housing.
regional housing coalition is meeting in a couple of Mondays forward, and that's in person in Redmond. And if anybody's interested in that, attending that, I will be able to attend that as far as I know, but if you're for hot on that issue, it's happening.
I did remember one other thing, if I may.
Okay,
I did attend the CLI cleanup that Saturday, and there was only, I think there were 14 of us or something like close to that. We were able to clear out that whole area that was burned just west of Sisters. But it's really gratifying work. You're making the forest be itself again. And so I encourage people to join them when you can and do that kind of work.
Do you think you're going to continue doing that?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
will.
I will. I think I will too. I like SCLI. I didn't make it that day, but, yeah. Anything else? Thank you so much. You've got a couple meetings left, so
Hmm?
I don't have to do my accolades just yet. Jennifer, congratulations, first of all.
Thank you.
Top vote getter.
Yeah.
I think, still.
Have to be here another 8 years, I think.
Yeah, maybe.
4,
4 for sure.
4 for sure.
No, congratulations. I know you did good and you've been doing good already, so I'm looking forward to working with you for, I have 2 more years.
Unless you're impeached.
Well, I
Yeah,
don't
we can
know.
do that.
I like peaches, but
We can do that now.
it's already starting. Let's get the new year going first, okay? Anyway, go ahead.
For Jordan, I was in 2 meetings today that was Kurt Shaw. In both of the meetings, it kind of came up, the being the leaseholder on the school property, and that moving along with the Parks and Rec District, but he knows and he's very appreciative of Scott and you working on the issue of getting treehouse therapies in there, and a little bit of a code tweak.
Yeah, the definition of community.
Yeah.
center.
Getting what
Right.
in there?
Treehouse Therapies, which is a group in Central Oregon that provides, I think, physical and mental therapy for children. And so that's one of the tenants that, when they were moving over into the.
Is that in
building.
addition to childcare
Yeah.
kind of thing?
Yeah, but it's kind of, I was in a daycare meeting follow-up, Eric Strobel was there as well, with the vision implementation team today, and it also came up in that it's a little bit of a linchpin of that organization to get in there, because we have SPRD doing preschool promise, we have, Soul Blossom finally doing 0 to 3 daycare in there, but having that, there's, Kurt was saying there's a big need for that organization. I mean, in Central Oregon in general, they have a 400 kid waiting list. And part of that is just, locations and stuff like that. So it seems like they have the staffing, they just don't have the location here. So, he was just hoping that whatever we can do to expedite that process and get them in as soon as possible. It's just, the sooner the better, because between the school district and SPRD and other care providers and educators, this is something that they're really needing, to address and help with some of the students and kids in Sisters Country. So, just passing that along, if there's a way we can, is it basically just kind of a wording change that we're going to need to approve, or is there more to it?
Yes, I mean, yeah, it's a text change to the definition of community center to be able to allow uses like that. I mean, it's one of those things where you wish you could stretch that, in these cases, but you have to be fair, right? And you have to watch out for unintended consequences and things of being too loose with the definition of something. And just right now, and if you look at what a community center, allowable uses of a community center are, it doesn't
So
really meet that.
psychosyllabin is out.
Well, that could,
See,
or
I mean, if
not,
you
right?
approve
If
it,
you
right?
allow, certain, but yeah, Scott's been working with them. We also need to involve SPRD too, as the kind of, they're basically have the master lease or whatever, and kind of operating the facility too,
Yeah.
and what improvements might be needed and things, so.
Yeah, and Jen Holland was in that meeting as well, so
Great.
they were all, I just wanted to pass that along, if there was any way,
Yeah,
That
I'll
can
see
be-
him tomorrow too. So I can-
okay. Get something in front of us so they can kind of do that, because I think they're ready and willing to move in there. It's just
Sounds great.
wanting to make sure that they're doing it on the up and up. Another thing that we, attended the monthly fire meeting, the mayor and I and Jordan. And one thing that came out of a session I did at League of Cities, and I mentioned about the Almeda fire, kind of after action review, was that trying to do a more frequent emergency exercise, with the city and our partners. I haven't done one in 4 years. And that was something that came out of that conversation or that presentation, they said was very critical because they got caught with their pants down. Like they didn't know who was supposed to do what, when and where, and they did the best that they could, and they could have, they admit they could have done a lot better if they had practiced this and knew who was supposed to do what, and knew where the emergency plan was, and knew who had the phone numbers, and
Mhm.
all those things. So, hoping that was something we can do, especially in the winter when it's a little quieter, coming up maybe in the next few months, and not necessarily, we don't need to be the lead on that necessarily, but,
That'd be
because we have a lot of partners, but, law enforcement, Forest Service, ODF, fire districts,
We do-
county,
Yeah, we do have a joint meeting coming up too, so that'd be,
yeah,
well, I don't think we need to have a full topic on it, but it would, wouldn't be a nice bullet item and say, hey, look, we've had a couple conversations and I agree with you. Um, it's a muscle we don't flex often enough, right? I
Yeah,
mean, that's
yeah.
how you get better at things, is to do it a little more often.
We had Nathan here a few months back.
Nathan, yeah.
Several months now, but I think this was having him come back and do like a training for council and stuff, but this is
Mhm.
taking even that a step further and doing more.
Possibly, yeah.
exercise with
Yeah.
our other community partners.
Yeah,
And even doing ICS classes, which I think, some of those you can do online, and I think be really helpful for, counselors and staff. I don't know what staff's done, but, as like I said, I think as council, we understand that, we don't, in an emergency, we're not expected to do much and to get out of the way per se, but people will call us, people will message us, people will ask us questions, and, we need to be at least at the bare minimum prepared to direct them to the right places. And be an asset and not be a liability.
my biggest job will be try not to cry on TV. I mean, honestly.
This is my
I mean, honestly, the, Mayor of Paradise, I haven't looked at it, but I'm sure the interviews were not great. So, anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
And then some questions about things from tonight. You were mentioning the bids coming in for the Barkley project, so it made me think, how are we doing financially with the roundabout project? How have we
Oh, yeah, I think,
financially?
I don't know the exact numbers, but I think we haven't seen any other changes. And I think it's been a few months, but they were still working through, if you recall, we got the added sidewalk, as part of that project, portions of the landscaping and things like that put in. So, I haven't heard otherwise if, our share, as far as our
Okay.
share and it cost of the city. So, of
All right, cool.
They love spending our money.
course.
And then, to follow up on the comment from earlier, just out of curiosity with the short-term rentals, how often do city staff kind of dig in online and look around to see who's doing what and above board and below board?
Yeah, we can get more information on that. I know Julie does that occasionally, kind of does a review. Some of this is dependent on complaints, in terms of investigating, kind of if there is an unauthorized one or suspected or somebody, we encourage people to call and let us know. We're actually gonna have a meeting with staff, and code enforcement staff here pretty soon next week about, the process for applications and reviews and follow-ups, on these type of issues. But it was a great comment and sort of something that I think we do need to work on, is how do we enforce that? But also how do we kind of get public information out about it too, about the good neighbor guidelines, about, hey, if you suspect there's here's how you can check, first of all, like online, look and see if that address has a permit. If not, yeah, give us a call. And, we have ways to encourage and enforce, unauthorized, short-term rentals. But, I don't have offhand, like, how many we've received, or I don't think it has been a lot.
We did some checking with these DCSO stats during the process, this last process. So I know we have some,
Yeah, and
With
but it
complaints?
wasn't a lot. It doesn't
I'll talk to Chad about the checkbox or other ideas that we could do to kind of.
Yeah.
We've talked about.
I
that
think it-
because Matt went through that process and it was arduous and they had to get the whole data dump and try to figure out, the addresses to the calls and things like that. And if there was an easier way, just for them to, okay, we got a noise complaint. Oh, it's flagged as an STR, notify the city.
Or maybe that's one of the new codes, in your list of incidents or whatever, I don't know. I mean, we'll come up with something. We'll be sure and let you know when we do come up with something. How's that? Yeah. Please continue to come in and monitor though and focus and prod us if you need to.
And I think the Halloween events went well. The 14 of them and I attended in one day. It was nice to spread them. Well, some felt like it. I think I had 4 different. I mean, I spread them out on different days, but a lot of fun. Seemed like everybody had a good time that I was seeing. So, I'm just looking through my calendar to make sure I'm not missing anything here. But yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Cool. I really don't have anything. Again, congratulations to you. We have 2 other new city councilors, as far as I know. Sarah McDougal is also a 4-year term. And then Cheryl Pellerin won the 2-year term, although there may be some votes still out there. I looked again just recently and there's been no updates since. And the 4th place person, Eli, is only about 30 something votes behind, but I don't know if there's
Hasn't
enough left.
certified yet, but.
We don't know for sure,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
congratulations to those people. I think it is this city council election especially was another one that just shows we have a lot of people that care and want to be involved. And I'm very pleased, and I think Susan has mentioned it before, that it's a bit of a different demographic than we've had in the past. And it's definitely our city's evolving into, a lot of different things all at the same time, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's great. More people with kids and business owners trying to get on, and yeah, it's good.
Mhm.
Not that you're bad. Not singling you out.
Sure.
But yeah, I think
she's
it's
been great,
fantastic,
yeah.
and I'm looking forward to working with, all 3 of the women that were elected. So I'm used to that. I've been working with you guys for a couple years, right, or more. And I think it's going to be fun, and we just have a lot more to tackle, more work to do. Does anybody have any questions of me? I think Halloween went really good too. Had some people step in. The businesses didn't want to relinquish the fun that they were having, and so it kind of got a little more organic and business driven, which I think was fine. It might have made it a little more spaced out instead of having these long lines of 50 kids marching, trying to be all in one line. And I think it actually may have been a little better in some ways, just because it wasn't huge groups. It was just small families walking around and going different directions. And I kind of liked it. I also went to the trunk or treat. That was fun. Thank you for staff that were there. And DCSO was also there. And from what I heard, they ran out of candy. The fire district gave away 600 pieces of candy. I heard of businesses giving away 600, 800 pieces of candy. So
Probably
there was,
wasn't a lot of trick or treating compared to previous years in the neighborhoods, because a
I-
lot of kids went to that.
I was down at my house. I only had 2, but of course I was out most of the time. I didn't get home till
I
almost
got
8
2
o'clock.
also.
2, and you're
2, yeah.
right across from the elementary
Yeah,
school,
one
basically.
came back that I scared to death, a year before, and she was a lot taller, but
Maybe it's a good thing you weren't running. No, I'm not.
She came back anyway, huh?
Wow. Anyway, thanks for everything. Next meeting's in a couple weeks.
Yeah, the 20th.
Yeah, so obviously this month we, instead of doing the 2nd and 4th because of November, because of Thanksgiving, we're doing the 1st and 3rd week, Wednesdays. That was planned a long time ago, and so we'll see everybody in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're adjourned.
thank you all.